Tonight, we will embark on a gentle journey, not to a destination, but into presence. We will explore the timeless wisdom of the Buddha, teachings that have served as a refuge for restless minds for over 2,500 years. These are not rules to follow or doctrines to memorize. They are invitations. Invitations to see differently, to soften your grip, and to uncover the deep well of peace that has been within you all along. We will walk this path through ancient stories and simple, profound truths that speak not to the busy mind, but to the quiet, knowing heart. We will learn to see our thoughts not as masters, but as passing clouds, and our difficult emotions not as enemies, but as messengers inviting us toward healing. This is your sanctuary, a space to rest your mind and nourish your spirit. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to fix, and no one you need to become. Simply allow these words to wash over you. If this path of quiet reflection calls to something deep within you, I invite you to subscribe and return to this space whenever you need to remember the peace that is your birthright. For now, just breathe. Let us begin this journey together. Our journey into deep peace begins with a gentle, honest look at the nature of our own minds. It starts with one of the most foundational teachings of the Buddha, a truth that, once understood, unlocks the door to liberation. This is the teaching on what is often called suffering, but a better word might be friction. It is the subtle, pervasive sense of unsatisfactoriness, the feeling that things are never quite right. It is the stress we feel when we resist the natural flow of life, when we cling to what is pleasant and push away what is painful. This friction is not a punishment or a flaw in our character. It is a fundamental part of the human experience when the mind is untrained. By turning toward this friction with a soft and curious gaze, we take the first real step toward a peace that cannot be shaken. There is an old story of a young woman named Mara who lived in a village at the foot of a great mountain. Mara was a weaver, and her skill was unmatched. She wove tapestries of incredible beauty, their colors as vibrant as the sunrise and their patterns as intricate as a spider's web. People came from all over the kingdom to purchase her work, and she was celebrated for her artistry. Mara's identity, her sense of self-worth, was woven into every thread. She believed, "I am a great weaver. This is who I am." For a time, this brought her great happiness. But with her success came a quiet fear. Each new tapestry had to be more beautiful than the last. She would lie awake at night, her mind racing with designs, worrying that her inspiration would one day vanish. The joy of creation slowly became tainted with the anxiety of expectation. One day, a royal messenger arrived with a commission from the king himself. He wanted a tapestry that captured the essence of the entire kingdom, its forests, its rivers, its people, its spirit. It was the greatest honor of her life, and it terrified her. She built a new, larger loom and bought the most expensive threads of silk and gold. For weeks, she tried to begin, but her hands would tremble. The immensity of the task paralyzed her. The fear of not being perfect, of not living up to her own reputation, was a cage she could not escape. Her loom stood empty, a monument to her fear. Her once joyful workshop became a place of dread. She grew withdrawn and unhappy, the friction in her mind a constant torment. One evening, unable to bear the silence of her workshop any longer, she walked up the mountain path as the sun began to set. She came to a small hermitage where an old nun lived, a woman known for her quiet wisdom. Mara, her voice choked with despair, explained her predicament. The old nun listened patiently, her eyes as calm as a deep forest pool. When Mara had finished, the nun did not offer advice or solutions. She simply said, "Come, let us watch the sunset." They sat together on a rock overlooking the valley. The sky was a canvas of brilliant oranges, deep purples and soft pinks. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a masterpiece of light and color that was changing with every passing second. "No one expects the sunset to hold still," the nun said softly. "Its beauty is in its vanishing. It does not worry about whether tonight's sunset is as beautiful as last night's. It simply is." She then looked at Mara with profound kindness. "You are not the weaver," she said. "You are the loom. Life is the weaver. Joy, fear, inspiration, and emptiness are all just threads of different colors. You have been trying to control the threads, to weave only with the threads of gold. But a tapestry with only one color has no depth. Your problem is not that you are afraid. The problem is that you believe you should not be." Mara felt the truth of these words settle deep within her bones. The tension in her shoulders began to release. She was not her success. She was not her fear. She was the space through which these things moved. She walked back down the mountain, under a sky full of stars. The next morning, she went to her workshop. She took a deep breath and began to weave. She did not try to weave the perfect tapestry. She simply wove what was in her heart that day. The color of her fear, the texture of her anxiety, but also the deep purple of the sunset and the silver of the starlight. The tapestry she created was unlike any she had made before. It was not perfect, but it was honest. It was alive. And in the act of weaving her whole self, not just the good parts, she found her freedom. Mara's story is our story. The friction, the dukkha, is not the royal commission or the fear of failure. It is the clinging to an identity, the resistance to the full spectrum of our human experience. The Buddha's first noble truth points directly to this. Life inevitably contains experiences that are unpleasant: sickness, loss, disappointment. These are part of the landscape. The second noble truth tells us that our suffering arises not from these experiences themselves, but from our craving, our thirst for reality, to be different. Mara was suffering because she was craving to be only the perfect weaver. She was resisting the threads of fear and doubt. This craving is a natural instinct of the untrained mind. We are conditioned to chase pleasure and avoid pain. We build our identities around our successes and strengths and try to hide our vulnerabilities. But this is like trying to build a dam in the middle of a flowing river. The pressure just builds. The Buddha's teaching is a radical invitation to stop building the dam. It is an invitation to see that our craving, our resistance, is the true source of the pressure we feel. When we chase happiness as a permanent state, we are destined for disappointment because everything is impermanent. When we run from sadness, we give it more power over us. The wisdom lies in turning toward our experience with a gentle and courageous curiosity. It's about widening our embrace to include all the threads, light and dark. This understanding is profoundly empowering. It means that the key to our peace is not in changing the world outside, but in transforming the view from within. We can't stop the river of life from flowing, but we can learn to navigate it with grace and wisdom, finding our balance not by resisting the current, but by moving with it. To bring this wisdom into your own life, you don't need to be a weaver or a monk. You can start right where you are, in the midst of your daily experience. The first practice is to simply become an observer of the friction in your own mind. When you feel that familiar tightening of anxiety, that flash of irritation, or that pang of disappointment, try not to immediately get lost in the story. Instead, pause. Take one conscious breath. And just for a moment, step back and observe the feeling as if you were a scientist watching a strange weather pattern. Name it gently to yourself. This is frustration, or this is the feeling of wanting things to be different. The simple act of naming and observing creates a space of awareness. In that space, you are no longer the emotion. You are the one who is aware of the emotion. This is the beginning of freedom. The next step is to get curious about the craving underneath. What is the mind thirsting for in this moment? If you're frustrated in a traffic jam, the craving is for the traffic to disappear, for reality to bend to your schedule. If you're hurt by a friend's comment, the craving is for their words to have been different, for the past to be rewritten. See if you can identify this underlying desire without judging it. See it with the same gentle curiosity you would have for a child who wants it to be sunny on a rainy day. This understanding softens the heart. You don't have to fight the craving. You just have to see it for what it is, a natural but ultimately unskillful strategy of the mind. Finally, practice softening your body. Our mental resistance manifests as physical tension. When you notice that friction, scan your body. Is your jaw tight? Are your shoulders hunched? Is your stomach in a knot? Consciously invite these parts of your body to soften. You can't think your way out of resistance, but you can breathe your way through it. As you exhale, imagine the tension gently dissolving. This is not about forcing relaxation. It is a gentle allowing, a physical expression of letting go. By practicing in these small moments, you are retraining your mind. You are teaching it that it is safe to feel the full spectrum of life, that you don't need to resist reality to be at peace. You are learning to be the loom, allowing all the threads of life to be woven into the beautiful, imperfect, and ever-changing tapestry of your being. Let us pause here for a moment. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, a quiet anchor in the flow of time. Allow your body to soften, releasing any tension you might be holding. Let the edges of your day melt into this quiet space of rest. If this journey into stillness resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk so we can continue to walk this path together, discovering the peace that is always waiting for our return. We continue our journey by exploring a truth that is both profoundly simple and radically transformative. It is the teaching of impermanence, or anicca. The universe is in a constant state of flux. Nothing is static. Not the mountains, not the stars, not our bodies, and not our thoughts. Everything that arises will eventually pass away. We often experience this truth as a source of anxiety. We fear loss, we grieve change, and we desperately try to hold on to moments of happiness as if they were solid objects. But the Buddha taught that our suffering comes not from the fact of change, but from our resistance to it. The teaching of impermanence is not a lament. It is a gateway to freedom. When we learn to stop fighting the flow of life and instead embrace its dynamic, ever-changing nature, we discover a joy that is deeper and more resilient than any fleeting pleasure. In a valley nestled between two great mountains, there lived a master potter. Her name was Isara, and her work was renowned throughout the land for its exquisite beauty and its near-perfect forms. Her bowls were so finely crafted that they seemed to hum with a life of their own. People would travel for days to acquire one of her pieces, believing that its perfection would bring a sense of order and peace to their homes. A young apprentice named Kyle came to study with her. Kyle was talented but impatient. He was obsessed with creating a perfect pot, one with no flaws, no imperfections, a masterpiece that would last forever. He would work for hours on a single vessel, his brow furrowed in concentration. But every time, just as he thought he had achieved perfection, he would find a tiny flaw, a slight asymmetry, a minuscule bubble in the glaze, a faint tremor from his own hand. In frustration, he would smash the pot and begin again, his workshop floor littered with the shards of his own high expectations. One afternoon, after a particularly frustrating day, Kyle watched as Isara sat at her wheel. She worked with a joyful ease, her hands moving with the clay as if in a dance. She crafted a beautiful, elegant vase. But as she was lifting it from the wheel, her hand slipped, and a deep, jagged crack appeared down one side. Kyle gasped, expecting her to be devastated, but Isara simply smiled. She took a small brush and, instead of discarding the vase, she began to paint a delicate golden lacquer along the line of the crack, transforming the floor into a shimmering vein of gold. She then placed the vase in a special part of her studio, alongside dozens of other pieces, each with its own golden repair. This was the art of kintsugi, the art of embracing breakage and imperfection. You are trying to create a pot that denies its own nature, Isara said to Kale, her voice full of warmth. Clay is of the earth. It is fragile. It is meant to change, to crack, to one day return to dust. To fight this is to fight the clay itself. A pot life is a journey of transformation. Its cracks tell the story of its journey, of the heat of the kiln, of the hands that held it, perhaps of a fall. They are not signs of failure. They are marks of a life lived. She gestured to the vase with the golden seam. This crack has not made the vase less beautiful. It has made it unique. It has told its story. True beauty, Kyle, is not the absence of flaws. It is the loving embrace of them. Kyle looked at his own pile of broken shards, the remnants of his quest for an impossible perfection. He had been trying to create something that stood outside of life, outside of time. Izara was showing him how to find beauty in the heart of life's fragility. He picked up 2 of his broken pieces and, for the first time, instead of seeing failure, he saw an opportunity. He began the slow, patient process of mending, not to hide the break, but to honor it. The story of Izara and the cracked pot is a profound metaphor for the teaching of impermanence. We are all like Kyle, striving for a kind of perfection and permanence that life does not offer. We want our bodies to stay young and healthy, our relationships to remain in a state of perpetual harmony, and our moments of happiness to last forever. We treat life's cracks, our illnesses, our heartbreaks, our failures, as tragedies to be hidden or overcome. But the wisdom of Anika teaches us that these cracks are not mistakes. They are an inevitable and essential part of our journey. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence is a call to see life as it truly is, a continuous, dynamic flow. Everything we can perceive with our senses, from our own thoughts and emotions to the stars in the sky, is in a state of constant transformation. Trying to hold on to any of it is like trying to grasp a handful of water. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. Our suffering is the tension in that squeeze. When we are caught in a difficult emotion like sadness or anger, it can feel all-consuming, as if it is a permanent part of our identity. We say, "I am sad," as if sadness is a solid thing that has replaced our true self. But impermanence reminds us that this is an illusion. Sadness is a weather pattern passing through the vast, open sky of our awareness. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. When we can remember this, we can meet our pain with less fear. We can allow it to be there, knowing that it, like everything else, will change. This understanding also revolutionizes our relationship with joy. Instead of clinging to happy moments with a desperate fear of them ending, we can learn to savor them fully with a heart of gratitude. We can appreciate the warmth of the sun on our skin without worrying about the inevitable arrival of clouds. This is the essence of non-attachment, not a cold detachment, but a loving, wholehearted participation in the dance of life without trying to control the music. This teaching frees us from the tyranny of the past and the anxiety of the future. The past is a collection of moments that have already dissolved. The future is a collection of moments that have not yet arisen. All we ever truly have is this present moment. And this present moment is always fresh, always new, always changing. Peace is found in learning to rest in the dynamic stillness of the now. How can we integrate this profound understanding of impermanence into the fabric of our lives? The practice is not about intellectual understanding, but about direct, felt experience. It begins with the gentle art of paying attention. A simple yet powerful practice is to choose one natural phenomenon and observe it regularly. It could be a tree outside your window, the moon in the night sky, or even a houseplant on your desk. Make a point to look at it each day. Notice the subtle changes. A new leaf unfurling, a flower blooming and then wilting. The way the light hits it differently at different times of day. This practice, done consistently, retrains the mind to see change not as an event, but as the constant, underlying reality of existence. Another practice is to become a curious observer of your own inner world. Sit quietly for a few minutes each day and simply watch the flow of your thoughts and feelings. Don't try to stop them or change them. Imagine you are sitting on the bank of a river, watching leaves and twigs float by. Some thoughts might be dark and heavy, others light and fleeting. Just watch them arise, linger for a moment, and then dissolve. Notice that you are not the thoughts. You are the awareness that is watching them. This practice cultivates a spaciousness within you, a quiet center that is untouched by the constant churn of the mind. You can also practice a letting go meditation. At the end of your day, find a comfortable position and mentally review the events of the day. As you bring each event to mind, a pleasant conversation, a moment of frustration, a task completed, consciously practice letting it go. You can visualize placing it on a leaf and watching it float away down a river, or you can simply say to yourself, "This moment is over. I release it." This is not about erasing your memories, but about loosening your grip on them. It is a way of acknowledging that the past is complete, freeing you to meet the present moment with openness and presence. Finally, bring this awareness into your interactions with others. When you are with a loved one, be fully present. Recognize that this moment is unique and will never come again. This recognition infuses your relationships with a preciousness and a tenderness that are often lost when we take things for granted. When you understand that everything and everyone is impermanent, you naturally begin to love more fully, to forgive more easily, and to appreciate the profound gift of sharing this fleeting journey with others. You learn to honor the cracks in yourself and in those you love as the beautiful golden scenes that tell the story of a life fully lived. Let's pause here again just for a moment. Take a slow, deep breath. Let the air fill your lungs completely, and then release it with a gentle sigh. Feel your body sinking a little deeper into the surface that supports it. Let go of the day. Let go of the need to be anywhere else. You are here, in this quiet space, and that is enough. We now turn our attention inward to one of the most subtle and liberating teachings of the Buddha. It is the doctrine of anatta, or not self. This teaching can sound strange or even frightening at first, as it seems to challenge the very foundation of who we believe we are. We live our lives with a strong sense of I, or me, at the center of our experience. An inner commander who is thinking our thoughts, feeling our emotions and making our decisions. But the Buddha invited us to look for this solid, separate self and to see if we can actually find it. The teaching of not-self is not a denial of your existence. It is an invitation to discover a far more spacious, interconnected, and joyful way of being, free from the heavy burden of a fixed identity. In a monastery known for its silent gardens, there lived a monk named Jin. He was plagued by a relentless inner critic. His mind was a constant stream of self-judgment. My meditation is not deep enough. I am not as compassionate as the other monks. I will never be enlightened. This sense of a flawed, inadequate self was a heavy cloak he wore day and night. He believed that this I was a solid, real entity that was failing at its spiritual task. One day, the abbot of the monastery, a wise old master, called Jin to his chambers. He didn't speak, but instead handed Jin a beautiful, ornate chariot, a small-scale model that was a masterpiece of craftsmanship. "Tell me, Jin," the abbot said, "what is this?" "It is a chariot, master," Jin replied. "Are you sure?" the abbot asked, his eyes twinkling. He then began to dismantle the model. He removed one of the wheels. "Is this wheel the chariot?" "No, master," Jin said. The abbot removed the other wheel, the axle, the frame, the decorative canopy. With each piece, he asked the same question, and each time, Jin's answer was the same. "No, master." Soon, all the individual parts of the chariot lay disassembled on the floor. "Now, where is the chariot?" the abbot asked. "The chariot," Jin said slowly, a look of dawning realization on his face, "is not a single thing. It is a temporary collection of parts working together. It is a name we give to a process." The abbot smiled a deep, knowing smile. "And so it is with the self you are so worried about," he said. "You look for this I that is failing, this Jin who is not good enough. But where is he? Is he your body? Your body is constantly changing, made of parts that are not you. Is he your thoughts? Your thoughts are like clouds, appearing and disappearing. Are they you? Is he your feelings? Your feelings are like the weather, always shifting. Are they you?" He gestured to the disassembled parts on the floor. "What you call self is just like this chariot. It is a collection of changing processes, body, feelings, perceptions, thoughts, and consciousness. We give this collection a name, a story, and then we mistake that name for a solid, unchanging thing. But there is no permanent I sitting in the driver's seat. There is just the process of life unfolding." Jin sat in stunned silence. The heavy cloak of his self-judgment began to feel lighter. If there was no fixed, failing self, then who was it that was failing? The inner critic's voice suddenly seemed less powerful, like the empty pronouncements of a king with no kingdom. He wasn't a failure, he was a process. And a process cannot fail, it can only unfold. The abbot's lesson to Jin strikes at the very core of the teaching of anatta. We spend so much of our energy constructing, polishing, and defending our sense of self. We build it from our memories, our accomplishments, our roles, our relationships, and our beliefs. We then live inside this self-constructed identity as if it were a fortress. But this fortress is also a prison. It limits us. It makes us rigid. It makes us fragile. because any challenge to our identity feels like a threat to our very existence. The teaching of not self is the key that unlocks the prison door. It reveals that what we take to be a solid, unchanging self is, upon closer inspection, an illusion. It is a beautiful, complex, ever-changing process, but it is not a static thing. The Buddha identified 5 aspects of this process, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. These are form, our physical body; sensations, our sensory experiences; perceptions, our mind's interpretation of those sensations; mental formations, our thoughts, emotions, and habits; and consciousness, the basic awareness of the other 4. He invited us to examine each of these aggregates and ask, is this permanent? Is this truly me? Can I control this completely? The answer to all 3 questions is no. Our bodies age and change. Our feelings are unpredictable. Our thoughts are a chaotic stream. There is no single, stable entity to be found. This realization is not a cause for nihilism or despair. It is profoundly liberating. If you are not a fixed identity, then you are not stuck. You are not defined by your past mistakes. You are not trapped in your current anxieties. You are a flowing river, not a stagnant pond. The anxious person you think you are is just a temporary pattern of thoughts and feelings. The person who failed is just a memory. These are not your permanent essence. This understanding also revolutionizes our relationships with others. When we stop clinging to a fixed idea of our own self, we naturally stop imposing fixed identities on others. We stop putting people in boxes. He is selfish. She is unreliable. We begin to see that everyone, just like us, is a complex, changing process, shaped by countless conditions we cannot see. This insight is the fertile ground from which true compassion grows. We see the humanity in others more clearly, and our hearts naturally soften. How can we begin to experience this truth of not self directly? This is not a concept to be believed, but a reality to be investigated in the laboratory of our own experience. One of the most direct ways is through a practice called vipassana, or insight meditation. The essence of this practice is to observe the 5 aggregates in action. Find a comfortable place to sit, and for a few minutes, simply bring your awareness to your body. Notice the sensations of breath, the feeling of pressure where you are sitting, any areas of warmth or coolness. Just observe these sensations as changing physical phenomena without labeling them as my body. See them simply as form and sensation arising in awareness. Then, turn your attention to your mind. Watch as thoughts appear. Don't engage with their content. Just notice them as mental events. A thought about the future arises. A memory from the past arises. An image appears. Label them gently. Thinking, remembering, planning. Notice that they come and go on their own. They are not your thoughts in the sense of being commanded by a central I. They are simply mental formations. Do the same with feelings. When a feeling of peace or restlessness arises, note it. Peace is here. Restlessness is here. See it as a temporary weather pattern, not as my feeling. The goal of this practice is not to find something, but to notice the absence of something, the absence of a solid, independent self controlling the show. Another powerful practice is to question the sense of I. Throughout your day, when the thought, I want this, or I am angry, or I need to do that, arises, gently pause and ask, who is this I? Look for it, and you locate it in your body, and you find it in your thoughts. This gentle, repeated inquiry begins to loosen the unconscious assumption that there is a fixed self at the helm. You begin to see that I is more of a convenient label, a pronoun we use to organize our experience, rather than a description of a real entity. Finally, practice seeing the interconnectedness of all things. When you eat a piece of fruit, reflect on all the conditions that brought it to you. The sun, the rain, the earth, the farmer who grew it, the person who transported it. See that the fruit is not a separate thing, but a manifestation of the entire universe. Then, apply this same understanding to yourself. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your very language have been shaped by your parents, your culture, your education. Your body is sustained by the food, water, and air of the planet. When you see this deep interdependence, the illusion of a separate, isolated self begins to dissolve. You are not a lonely island. You are a wave in the great ocean of being, inseparable from the whole. This realization that the separate self is an illusion naturally leads us to our next exploration. It is the teaching of dependent origination, or Paticca. This beautiful and profound doctrine illuminates the very fabric of reality, showing us that nothing, absolutely nothing, exists on its own. Everything arises in dependence on other factors. Every object, every person, every thought, every moment is a convergence of countless causes and conditions. Seeing this truth doesn't just change how we think. It dissolves the very roots of alienation and loneliness and gives rise to a deep and unshakable compassion. There is a teaching story told of a solitary monk named Stila, who went to a remote cave in the mountains to deepen his meditation. He wanted to find a peace that was entirely his own, untouched by the messiness and noise of the world. He believed that by isolating himself, he could achieve a pure and independent state of enlightenment. For his daily meal, he had a single bowl of rice, which a villager would silently leave at the mouth of his cave each morning. One day, as he prepared to eat, he looked closely at the small white grains in his bowl. His teacher's words echoed in his mind. Look deeply at any one thing, and you will see the whole universe. Sila decided to try. He focused his entire attention on a single grain of rice. At first, he saw only a tiny white object, but as his mind stilled, his vision deepened. He saw the farmer who had planted the rice seed, his back bent under the hot sun, his hands calloused from the work. He saw the rich, dark earth that had nourished the seed, and the monsoon rains that had watered it, rains that had traveled as clouds from a distant ocean. He saw the sun, a fiery star millions of miles away, whose light was essential for the rice stalk to grow. He saw the people who had harvested the rice, those who had milled it, and the one who had transported it to the market. He saw the villager who, with an act of quiet generosity, cooked the rice and brought it to his cave. He saw the potter who had crafted his simple clay bowl and the fire that had hardened it. He continued looking and saw that the farmer could not have worked without the food he ate, which was grown by other farmers. The rain could not have formed without the ocean, and the ocean could not exist without the rivers. Everything was connected. His simple bowl of rice contained the sun, the clouds, the earth, and the labor and kindness of countless people. It was a universe in miniature. In that moment, Sila's feeling of isolation shattered. His quest for a separate, independent peace suddenly seemed absurd. He realized that even here, in his remote cave, he was not alone. He was deeply, inextricably connected to everything and everyone. His nourishment, his body, his very breath were gifts from the world he had tried to leave behind. He bowed to the bowl of rice, not as a monk eating a meal, but as a man receiving the universe. His heart, once closed in a pursuit of solitary purity, broke open with a profound sense of gratitude and connection to all life. Still awakening in the cave is the direct experience of dependent origination. This teaching is often summarized in a simple phrase: when this is, that is. When this is not, that is not. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. It means that nothing has a fixed, independent existence. Everything is a temporary manifestation of an infinite web of causes and conditions. Just like Sila's grain of rice, you in this very moment are a convergence of the entire cosmos. The air you are breathing was once the breath of ancient trees. The water in your body was once part of a cloud, a river, an ocean. Your thoughts and language are shaped by generations of ancestors, writers, and thinkers you have never met. The illusion of being a separate self is one of the primary sources of our suffering. It leads to feelings of loneliness, competition, and fear. We feel that we are a fragile me against a vast and indifferent world. But dependent origination reveals this boundary to be a fiction of the mind. There is no me separate from the world. You are a manifestation of the world. This understanding is the foundation of true compassion. When you see this interconnectedness, you realize that the well-being of others is inseparable from your own. Their joy is your joy. Their suffering is your suffering. When someone acts out of anger or greed, you no longer see a bad person. Instead, you see a being who is caught in a web of painful causes and conditions, perhaps a history of trauma, of misunderstanding, of fear. Your judgment softens into a wish for them to be free from that suffering. This does not mean you condone harmful actions. It means you act from a place of clarity and compassion, rather than from reactivity and hatred. You understand that hurting another is, in a very real sense, hurting yourself. This teaching also reveals the profound power of our own actions. Because everything is connected, every thought, word, and deed sends ripples out into the universe. A small act of kindness may seem insignificant, but its effects can travel through the web in ways we will never know, touching countless lives. A moment of mindful presence can shift the energy not only within you, but in the space around you. We are not just passive products of conditions. We are active co-creators of the world in every moment. To bring this deep wisdom of interconnectedness into your heart, you can practice what the monk Sila did, the art of deep looking. This isn't a formal meditation, but a way of engaging with the world with new eyes. Begin with your food. Before you take your next meal, pause for just a moment. Look at the food on your plate and contemplate its journey to you. Think of the earth, the sun, the rain, the hands that planted, harvested, transported, and prepared it. Silently, offer a thought of gratitude for all these interconnected elements that are now offering you nourishment. This simple practice, done regularly, transforms the act of eating from a mechanical habit into a sacred communion with life. Extend this practice to the objects around you. Look at the chair you are sitting on or the clothes you are wearing. Contemplate the tree that became the wood, the cotton that became the thread. Think of the designers, the factory workers, the truck drivers. See how this simple object is a meeting point for a global network of energy and effort. This practice dissolves the mundane and reveals the miraculous in the ordinary. The most challenging and rewarding practice is to apply this deep looking to people, especially those you find difficult. When you are feeling frustrated or angry with someone, pause. Instead of focusing on their irritating behavior, try to contemplate the unseen conditions that might have shaped them. What might their childhood have been like? What fears or insecurities might be driving their actions? What pressures are they under that you cannot see? This is not about excusing their behavior, but about seeing their humanity more fully. It is an act of compassion that creates a space for you to respond with wisdom, instead of reacting with anger. Finally, practice noticing the co-arising in your own experience. Notice how a certain thought can trigger a physical sensation. Notice how a lack of sleep affects your mood. Notice how a kind word can change the entire chemistry of your body. See that your inner world is also a web of dependent origination. By observing these connections without judgment, you gain a profound understanding of how to skillfully cultivate the causes and conditions for your own peace and well-being. Let us pause now, taking a moment to feel the truth of this connection. Feel the air entering your lungs, a gift from the vast atmosphere. Feel the ground supporting you, a gift from the ancient earth. You are held. You are part of this magnificent web. If this sense of belonging brings peace to your heart, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk. Let us continue to explore these quiet truths together. Having seen that we are not separate, but part of a vast, interconnected flow. We now arrive at a very practical question. How do we navigate this flow? The Buddha's answer is beautifully elegant. We walk the middle way. This is not a path of compromise or mediocrity. It is a dynamic, intelligent path of balance that avoids the two extremes that cause so much suffering: the extreme of sensual indulgence and the extreme of harsh self-mortification. It is the path between grasping and aversion, between being too tight and being too loose. The middle way is the art of living with wisdom and grace, finding a sacred center in all aspects of our lives. The story of the middle way is the story of the Buddha's own life. Before his enlightenment, he lived as Prince Siddhartha, surrounded by every imaginable luxury. He had beautiful palaces, fine clothes, delicious food, and was shielded from all sights of suffering. He lived in the extreme of sensual indulgence, chasing happiness through pleasure. Yet, despite having everything, he felt a deep spiritual emptiness. He realized that this kind of happiness was fragile, dependent on external conditions, and could never lead to lasting peace. So he left the palace and swung to the opposite extreme. He became a wandering ascetic, practicing severe self-denial. He fasted until his ribs showed, slept on beds of thorns, and held his breath for long periods, believing that by punishing his body, he could liberate his spirit. For 6 years, he pushed his body to the brink of death. But enlightenment did not come. He only became weak, and his mind grew clouded. One day, collapsed by a river and close to death, he heard a musician on a passing boat teaching a student how to tune a sitar. The string, the musician said, must not be too tight, or it will snap. And it must not be too loose, or it will not make a sound. The perfect note is found in the middle. In that moment, Siddhartha had a profound insight. His whole spiritual search had been like tuning that sitar. He had tried the loose string of indulgence and the tight string of asceticism. Neither had worked. The path to awakening, he realized, must lie in the middle. At that moment, a village girl named Sujata, seeing his emaciated state, offered him a bowl of rice milk. His ascetic companions were horrified, believing he had given up the spiritual path. But Siddhartha accepted it. The nourishing food restored his strength, calmed his body, and cleared his mind. With this newfound balance, he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, not too tight, not too loose, and resolved not to move until he had found the truth. It was from this place of centered, balanced awareness that he finally achieved enlightenment. The Buddha's experience teaches us that the path to peace is not found in extremes. Indulgence makes the mind dull and agitated, forever chasing the next pleasure. Harsh denial makes the mind tense and resentful, and it can be a form of self-hatred disguised as spiritual discipline. The middle way is a path of kindness and wisdom. It applies to every aspect of our lives. Consider our relationship with our body. One extreme is to neglect it, feeding it unhealthy food and ignoring its need for rest. The other extreme is to become obsessed with it, striving for an impossible physical perfection and punishing it with excessive exercise or restrictive diets. The middle way is to treat the body with respect as a precious vehicle for our spiritual journey. It means nourishing it with healthy food, giving it the rest it needs, and moving it with joy, not with aggression. It's about listening to the body's wisdom. The same principle applies to our effort in life. Sometimes we push ourselves relentlessly, driven by ambition or fear, until we burn out. This is the tight string. Other times, we fall into lethargy and procrastination, avoiding any form of challenge or discomfort. This is the loose string. The middle way is about cultivating right effort, a balanced, sustainable energy. It's knowing when to strive and when to soften. It's working with diligence, but without frantic tension, and resting with intention, but without guilt. This balance is not a fixed point. It is a dynamic dance we learn to feel from moment to moment. The middle way also guides our emotional life. We can swing between the extreme of emotional suppression, where we deny or numb our feelings, and the extreme of emotional indulgence, where we are completely swept away by every mood. The middle path is mindfulness. It is the capacity to be with our feelings, our joy, our sadness, our anger, without either pushing them away or being consumed by them. We acknowledge the feeling. We allow it to be there, and we watch it with a calm and spacious awareness, just as we would watch the weather change in the sky. This is the art of being neither too tight nor too loose with our own hearts. To walk the middle way is to become a master of the art of living. It is a path that requires constant awareness and gentle self-correction. The first practical step is to cultivate the quality of listening inward. Before you eat, ask your body, what do I truly need for nourishment? Before you take on another project, ask yourself, do I have the energy for this, or do I need rest? Before you react in a conversation, ask your heart, what is the most balanced and kind response here? This inner listening is your compass for the middle way. It moves you from living by rigid rules to responding with flexible wisdom. Another practice is to become aware of your own patterns of extremism. Do you tend to be too hard on yourself or too lenient? Do you push yourself to burnout, or do you shy away from effort? Simply notice your tendencies without judgment. Awareness itself is the first step toward finding a more balanced approach. For example, if you notice you have a tendency toward harsh self-criticism, a tight mind, you can consciously practice self-compassion. When the inner critic arises, you can soften and say to yourself, "It's okay. I am doing my best." If you notice a tendency toward procrastination, a loose mind, you can practice taking one small, gentle step toward your goal, breaking down the task to make it less overwhelming. Practice with your spiritual life as well. There may be days when meditation feels easy and blissful. There will be other days when your mind is restless and you can barely sit for a minute. The middle way is to show up consistently with kindness. Don't grasp for the blissful states or despair when the practice feels difficult. Simply offer your gentle attention for 5 minutes or for an hour. The value is in the intention and the gentle, balanced effort not in the result. Finally, remember the metaphor of the sitar string. Throughout your day, you can check in with yourself and ask, am I too tight or too loose right now? This question can apply to your posture, your breathing, your grip on a steering wheel, or your attitude toward a problem. Often, you will find you are holding on too tightly. In that moment, you can consciously breathe out and soften. You can release the tension. This constant, gentle retuning is the practice of the middle way. It is how we create beautiful music with our lives. Let's pause and breathe into this sense of balance. Feel your breath, not forced, not shallow, but just right. Feel your body, not rigid, not slumped, but gracefully present. This is the middle. It is a place of peace. If finding this center speaks to you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk and let us walk this balanced path together. From this place of balance, we can now open our hearts. The wisdom teachings of Buddhism are often compared to one wing of a bird, and compassion is the other. Both are needed to fly. We now explore the practice of metta, or loving kindness. This is not a sentimental or passive feeling. It is the active, intentional cultivation of unconditional goodwill, a radiant warmth that we can learn to extend to ourselves, to others, and to all of life. Metta is a powerful antidote to anger, resentment, fear, and self-criticism. It is the practice of tending to the garden of the heart so that kindness can bloom. In a small monastery nestled in a forest, there was a monk named Vimal. He was diligent in his studies and disciplined in his meditation, but his heart was hard. He was quick to find fault in the other monks. One was too loud, another too lazy, a third too proud. Most of all, he was harsh with himself. Every perceived mistake in his practice was met with a barrage of internal criticism. His mind was a battlefield, and he was becoming exhausted and bitter. One day, his teacher, a gentle old master, called him over. "Vimal," he said, "your mind is like a parched field where nothing can grow. You water it only with the salt of judgment. From now on, you will put aside your other studies. Your only practice will be this. You will take a small, smooth stone, and for 1 hour each day, you will walk the forest path and repeat the words, 'May I be happy. May I be at peace.'" Vimal thought the instruction was foolish. "How will repeating empty words help me?" he protested. "I need more discipline, not less." "The hardness in your heart is your greatest indiscipline," the master replied softly. "Just do as I say." Reluctantly, Vimal began the practice. For the first few days, he felt ridiculous. He muttered the phrases through clenched teeth, his mind screaming in protest. The words felt like lies. Happy? I am miserable. Peaceful? I am at war. He felt no kindness, only irritation. But he had promised his teacher, so he continued. After a week, something began to shift. One day, as he was walking, he saw a small deer with its fawn. The mother deer was so gentle, so tender with her young. A feeling, faint but warm, stirred in Vimal's chest. That day, when he repeated the phrase, "May I be happy," it felt slightly less like a lie. He continued his practice. He started to notice small things: the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves, the scent of the damp earth, the sound of a distant stream. One day, he saw another monk stumble and drop a stack of firewood. Vimal's first instinct was to judge him as clumsy. But then, a new thought arose, unbidden. May he be at ease? It was quiet, but it was there. He walked over and helped the monk gather the wood, and for the first time, he looked him in the eyes and smiled, a genuine smile. His main practice continued to be for himself. May I be happy. May I be at peace. The phrases became smoother, less forced. He began to feel a sliver of the peace he was wishing for. He realized that for years, he had been treating himself like an enemy. This practice was the first time he had ever actively offered himself kindness. The hardness in his heart, like a frozen river in spring, began to thaw. One day, the master saw him sitting by the stream, no longer holding the stone, simply watching the water flow. Vimal's face was soft, his eyes clear. "The field is no longer parched, is it?" the master asked. Vimal bowed, his heart full of a quiet, warm gratitude. "No, master," he said. "The rain has finally come." Vimal's story illustrates the transformative power of metta practice. It is a form of mental training that rewires our habitual responses of anger, judgment, and fear. The Buddha taught that just as a farmer cultivates the earth to grow crops, we can cultivate our hearts to grow the wholesome states of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Loving kindness is the foundational practice. It is the sincere wish for the well-being of a being, without any expectation of getting something in return. It is a love that is unconditional and boundless. Crucially, the practice traditionally begins with oneself. This is not a selfish act. We cannot offer to others what we do not have for ourselves. Many of us find it easiest to feel kindness for others, but we live with a harsh inner critic who berates us for our perceived flaws. Directing loving kindness toward ourselves is often the most difficult and therefore the most essential step. It is a radical act of self-acceptance and self-compassion. It heals the inner wounds that cause us to lash out at the world. When we can hold ourselves with tenderness, we naturally have more patience and understanding for others. The practice of metta then gradually expands outward. After establishing a foundation of kindness for ourselves, we bring to mind a loved one or a benefactor, someone for whom it is easy to feel warmth, and we extend the same wishes to them. Then, we move to a neutral person, someone we see in our daily life but have no strong feelings about, like a shopkeeper or a bus driver. This step stretches our capacity for kindness beyond our immediate circle. The most challenging step is to then extend loving kindness to a difficult person, someone with whom we have conflict or for whom we feel resentment. This is not about condoning their actions or forcing ourselves to like them. It is a profound practice of letting go of the poison of our own anger for our own sake. It is recognizing their humanity and wishing for them to be free from the suffering that causes them to act in harmful ways. Finally, the practice expands to include all beings, everywhere, without exception. This vast, boundless intention helps to dissolve the final barriers of us and them, connecting us to the entire web of life with a heart of universal love. Metta is not just a meditation, it is a way of life. It changes how we speak, how we listen, and how we act in the world. To begin cultivating loving kindness, you don't need a special stone or a forest path. You only need a quiet moment and a willing heart. Find a comfortable position where you can be undisturbed for a few minutes. You can close your eyes if that feels comfortable. First, bring your awareness to your own being. Perhaps place a hand gently on your heart as a gesture of warmth and tenderness toward yourself. Then, silently and slowly, begin to repeat a few phrases of loving kindness. The traditional phrases are, "May I be safe," "May I be happy," "May I be healthy," "May I live with ease." Repeat these phrases gently, like a soft inner lullaby. Don't worry if you don't feel a big wave of emotion. The purpose is not to force a feeling, but to plant a seed. The intention is what matters. If your mind wanders, gently guide it back. If feelings of unworthiness or resistance arise, just notice them with kindness. You can even say to that feeling, "May you also be at peace." Simply continue offering these wishes to yourself for a few minutes. After you have spent some time with yourself, bring to mind a good friend or someone who has been kind to you. Picture them in your mind's eye. Get a sense of their presence. Then, shift the phrases to them. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the natural warmth you have for this person and let it flow with the words. You can carry this practice into your daily life. When you are standing in line at a store, you can silently offer metta to the person in front of you. When you hear an ambulance siren, you can send wishes of safety and healing to those involved. When you read difficult news, you can extend wishes of peace to all those affected. This is a way of transforming moments of passive observation into active compassion. Be patient with this practice. It is like learning to play an instrument. It takes time and gentle, consistent effort. Some days, the heart will feel open and warm. Other days, it may feel closed and resistant. That's okay. Just show up. Water the seed of kindness each day, and trust that in time, your inner landscape will begin to bloom with a warmth that can hold yourself and the whole world with unshakable love. Be patient with this practice. It is like learning to play an instrument. It takes time and gentle, consistent effort. Some days, the heart will feel open and warm. Other days, it may feel closed and resistant. That's okay. Just show up. Water the seed of kindness each day, and trust that in time, your inner landscape will begin to bloom with a warmth that can hold yourself and the whole world with unshakable love. As this warmth of loving kindness begins to permeate our being, it helps to melt away the layers of judgment and fear that obscure our true nature. This leads us to one of the most beautiful and encouraging teachings in the Buddhist tradition. The idea that our fundamental awareness is inherently pure, luminous, and clear. The Buddha described the mind in its natural state as being like a clear sky, and our thoughts, emotions, and memories are like passing clouds. No matter how dark the storm clouds get, no matter how fierce the winds of emotion may blow, they can never stain or damage the sky itself. The sky remains untouched, vast, and peaceful. This teaching offers a profound shift in perspective. It invites us not to a struggle to create peace, but to the gentle work of uncovering the peace that is already here, waiting patiently beneath the turbulence of our minds. There is a beloved story from the East about a poor traveler who, weary from a long journey, fell asleep on the roadside. He was a man defined by his poverty. His coat was a patchwork of rags, thin and offering little protection from the cold. His stomach was a hollow ache of constant hunger, and his mind was a tangled knot of worry about where his next meal would come from. He saw the world through a lens of lack, and he saw himself as its most unfortunate victim. While he slept, a dear friend who was a wealthy merchant came by. Seeing his friend in such a state of suffering, his heart was filled with pity. The merchant possessed a priceless diamond, a jewel of unimaginable brilliance, flawless and radiant. He wanted to give his friend a new life, to end his suffering forever. Not wanting to wake him and cause a fuss, the merchant carefully, and with great love, sewed the diamond deep into the inner hem of the traveler's worn and tattered coat. Then, with a silent blessing, he continued on his way. The traveler awoke sometime later, stretched his aching limbs, and felt the familiar pang of hunger. He was completely unaware of his new fortune. He continued his life of poverty, wandering from town to town, begging for scraps of food and a place to sleep. For years, he lived this way, his suffering a constant companion. He cursed his fate and envied the wealthy, never knowing that he himself carried a treasure that could end all his troubles. The diamond, hidden and forgotten, traveled with him through dust and rain, through cities and forests, its brilliant light completely obscured by a thin layer of cloth. One day, many years later, he happened to cross paths with the same merchant friend. The merchant was shocked to see him still living in such misery. "My friend," he cried out, his voice a mixture of astonishment and compassion. "What have you been doing all this time? Why are you still living like this? I gave you a priceless jewel years ago. It should have been more than enough to provide for you for the rest of your life." The traveler looked at him, bewildered. "You gave me nothing," he mumbled, his voice full of the resignation of his long suffering. The merchant knelt down, took the hem of the traveler's ragged coat, and with his knife, carefully cut the threads he had sewn so long ago. The diamond fell into his palm, catching the sunlight and exploding into 1,000 points of brilliant, dazzling light. The traveler stared, speechless. He had been a rich man all along, but he had been living as a pauper because he didn't know the treasure he possessed. This story is a perfect allegory for our own human situation. The Buddha taught that within each of us, sewn into the very fabric of our being, is a Buddha nature, a nature that is as pure, brilliant, and indestructible as that diamond. It is our innate capacity for wisdom, for boundless compassion, for unshakable peace. This core of our being cannot be damaged by our trauma. It cannot be stained by our mistakes. and it cannot be diminished by our confusion. It is always there, whole and complete. The problem is that, like the traveler, we don't know it. We identify with our worn and tattered coat, our fleeting, anxious thoughts, our painful and stormy emotions, our self-critical stories. We believe the story that says, "I am an anxious person. I am not worthy of love. I am fundamentally broken." We live in a state of self-imposed spiritual poverty, completely unaware of the immense wealth that lies within our own heart. The entire spiritual path, then, is not about becoming a better person or acquiring a diamond we don't have. It is the process of realizing the diamond is already ours. It is the practice of turning our attention inward and recognizing the luminous, knowing quality of awareness that has been present all along, witnessing every moment of our lives. This awareness is the silent witness. It is the part of you that is aware that you are thinking, but is not the thoughts themselves. It is the part of you that feels a wave of sadness wash through you, but is not the sadness itself. It is the calm, unchanging presence that holds the ever-changing contents of your life. Recognizing this nature is profoundly healing. It is the ultimate act of self-love and acceptance. It means you don't have to fix yourself. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a treasure to be discovered. The work is not to become a different person, but to gently remove the layers of mud, the layers of conditioning, fear, and mistaken identity that have hidden the brilliance of your own heart. This is a deeply optimistic view of humanity. It suggests that our obscurations, what Buddhists call the kleshas, greed, hatred, and delusion, are like clouds, not a fundamental part of the sky. They are temporary and can be dispelled. Our true nature is the clear, open sky. To experience this luminous nature for yourself is to shift from a life of frantic doing to a life of restful being. The practice is subtle, requiring less effort and more trust. It is the art of recognizing the sky behind the clouds. One of the most direct ways to practice this is to pay attention to the spaces between things. Sit quietly and bring your attention to your breath. But instead of just focusing on the in-breath and the out-breath, become particularly interested in the brief pause that happens at the end of the exhalation, before the next inhalation naturally begins. In that tiny, empty gap, there is a moment of pure stillness. There is no thought, no effort, just quiet, alert presence. Try to rest your attention in that stillness, even for a second. It is a doorway, a glimpse into the quiet, spacious nature of your own mind. You can also practice listening to the silence. Find a quiet place and simply listen. At first, you will hear external sounds. A distant car, the hum of a refrigerator, the chirping of a bird. These are the foreground sounds. But can you listen underneath them? Can you become aware of the vast field of silence that is holding all of them? That silence is not an empty void. It is a vibrant, full presence. It is the canvas upon which all sounds are painted. Your awareness is like that silence. It holds all the noise of your mind, without being disturbed or defined by it. Try to rest as that silent, listening presence. Another powerful practice is to gently ask yourself throughout the day, who is aware? Or what is aware right now? When you're seeing a tree, hearing a sound, or thinking a thought, you can gently turn the question back on itself. What is this knowing quality? What is the awareness that is experiencing this? Don't look for an answer in words or concepts. The mind will want to say, I am aware. But then you can ask, and who is aware of that thought? Instead, try to feel into the direct experience of awareness itself. It has no color, no shape, no location, but it is undeniably present. It is the light by which you experience your entire life. By repeatedly turning your attention to this inner light, you begin to identify with it more than with the fleeting objects it illuminates. Finally, practice trusting this underlying goodness, especially when you feel at your worst. When you make a mistake or feel overwhelmed by a difficult emotion, instead of falling into the familiar pit of self-criticism, gently remind yourself of the diamond in your coat. You can place a hand on your heart and say to yourself, beneath this confusion, my nature is pure. Beneath this sadness, my heart is whole. This is not a form of positive thinking or denial. It is a profound act of trust in your own deepest nature. It is remembering that no matter how worn and tattered the coat may seem, the jewel within remains perfectly, brilliantly, and beautifully intact. Let us pause for a moment. Feel the quiet presence that is listening to these words. Not the ears, but the awareness behind them. This is your home ground. This is the source of peace. If resting in this quiet space feels like coming home, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk. Let us continue to rediscover this inner treasure together. To uncover the luminous mind that lies within, to find the diamond in the coat, we need a clear and steady tool. That tool is mindfulness. While we have touched upon mindfulness throughout our journey, it is so central to the path that it deserves its own deep exploration. Mindfulness, or sati, is the art of paying attention to the present moment, intentionally and without judgment. It is the simple yet profound practice of waking up from the dream of our compulsive thinking and arriving fully in our lives as they are unfolding, right here, right now. It is often paired with its indispensable partner, concentration, or samadhi, which is the ability to keep our attention stable and collected once we have placed it. Together, mindfulness and concentration are the two wings of a bird, allowing us to soar into the clear sky of our own awareness. Imagine a skilled archer preparing to shoot an arrow at a distant target. The crowd around her is murmuring, the wind is blowing, and the memory of a previous miss tugs at the edge of her mind. Yet, to succeed, she must bring her entire being into this singular, present moment. Her breath must be deep and steady, her body relaxed yet firm, her gaze soft yet unwavering. If her mind drifts to the past, to the memory of that miss, a subtle tension will enter her arm, and the arrow will fly untrue. If she becomes anxious about the future, about the glory of hitting the target, or the shame of failing, her focus will blur, and her aim will be off. Her power, her skill, her very artistry comes from her ability to gather all of her scattered energy, all the distractions, all the hopes, all the fears, and channel it into a single point of profound, unshakable presence. In the moment of release, there is no archer, no target, no past, no future. There is only the flight of the arrow. That state of collected, mindful awareness is precisely what we are cultivating in Buddhist practice. Most of the time, our minds are the opposite of that archer. Our mental energy is scattered in 1,000 directions. We are driving our car while replaying an argument from yesterday. We are eating our lunch while composing an email for tomorrow. We're in conversation with a loved one, nodding and smiling, while our mind is 1,000,000 miles away, lost in a labyrinth of worry. We are rarely ever fully where we are. This state of distraction is a form of psychic sleepwalking. We are not truly living our lives. We are living in a mental simulation of them. This is a primary source of our suffering. It robs us of the richness and beauty of the present moment, and it fuels our anxiety, as our minds are constantly churning through problems that are either long over or haven't even happened yet. Mindfulness is the gentle but firm practice of waking up from this dream. It is the act of bringing our attention back from the scattered worlds of past and future and anchoring it in the direct, tangible reality of the now. The practice of mindfulness is the heart of Buddhist meditation. It is the training that allows us to see the workings of our own mind with compassionate clarity, rather than being helplessly tossed about by them. When you are mindful, you begin to see your thoughts as just thoughts, passing mental events like clouds in the sky, not as absolute truths or direct commands. You can observe a thought of anger arise, and instead of immediately identifying with it and acting on it, you can simply note, anger is here. This creates a crucial gap of awareness, a sacred pause. In that space, there is freedom. In that space, you can choose to respond with wisdom and kindness, rather than react with blind habit. This is how we begin to untangle ourselves from our most destructive patterns. Mindfulness is also profoundly kind. The instruction is to pay attention without judgment. This is so important. We are often our own harshest critics. When we try to meditate, our minds might say, "You're doing this wrong. You can't even sit still for a minute. You're a failure at this." A mindful response is to see that thought of self-criticism and to meet it with gentleness, not with another layer of judgment. You simply note, judging is here, and then, with the kindness you would show a lost puppy, you gently guide your attention back to your breath. Every time you do this, you are performing an act of profound self-compassion. As mindfulness strengthens, so does concentration, samadhi. A mindful mind is a collected mind. Just as the archer gathers all her energy into one point, the meditator learns to gather their attention onto a single object, most commonly the breath. As the attention becomes more stable, the monkey mind begins to calm down. It's like letting a jar of muddy water sit undisturbed. The mud of our restless thoughts and agitating emotions gradually settles, and the water of the mind becomes transparent and still. In this state of clear, concentrated awareness, deep insights can arise spontaneously. We begin to see the truth of impermanence, not self, and interconnectedness, not as philosophical ideas, but as visceral, lived realities. This is why mindfulness and concentration are said to be the path to wisdom. They are not just relaxation techniques, they are the master tools we use to explore and ultimately liberate our own minds. The foundational practice for developing mindfulness and concentration is the mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati. You can practice this anywhere, but it is helpful, especially in the beginning, to find a quiet place where you can sit for a few minutes without being disturbed. Find a posture that embodies dignity and ease. It could be on a cushion on the floor, or sitting upright in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. The key is an upright spine, which fosters alertness, and a relaxed body, which fosters calm. You can close your eyes gently, or keep them softly open with a downward gaze. Begin by taking 3 slow, deep breaths, and with each exhalation, consciously release any obvious physical or mental tension. Then, let your breath return to its natural rhythm. Don't try to control it or change it in any way. Just let the body breathe itself. Now, choose a spot to anchor your attention. A common spot is the tip of the nostrils, where you can feel the subtle sensations of the cool air entering and the slightly warmer air leaving. Another good spot is the abdomen, feeling the gentle rise on the in-breath and the gentle fall on the out-breath. Choose one of these spots and simply rest your attention there. Feel the raw sensation of the breath, moment by moment. Your mind will inevitably wander. It will drift into planning, remembering, worrying, or fantasizing. This is not a mistake or a failure. It is simply the nature of the untrained mind. The moment you notice that your mind has wandered is a moment of success. It is a moment of mindfulness. Gently and kindly, without any self-criticism, acknowledge where your mind went. Thinking or worrying. And then, like a loving parent guiding a child back home, gently escort your attention back to the sensations of the breath. This act of noticing the distraction and gently returning is the core muscle-building exercise of the practice. Every time you bring your mind back, you are strengthening your capacity for both mindfulness and concentration. That's the whole practice, simple, but not always easy. The key is the quality of your attitude, one that is gentle, patient, and infinitely kind to yourself. You can also bring mindfulness into your daily activities. This is the practice of informal mindfulness. When you are washing the dishes, try to just wash the dishes. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. See the iridescent shimmer of the soap bubbles. Hear the sound of the plates. When you are walking from your car to your office, feel the sensation of your feet making contact with the ground. Notice the movement of your body through space. When you are listening to a loved one, give them the precious gift of your full attention. Listen not just to their words, but to the feelings and needs behind their words. Let go of rehearsing your reply and simply be present for them. These moments of informal practice are just as important as formal sitting meditation. They are how we weave presence into the fabric of our entire life, transforming the mundane into the sacred. Let us pause for a moment. Bring your awareness to your own breath right now. Feel one full inhalation and one full exhalation. You are here. You are present. This moment is a gift. If this simple act of returning to presence feels good to you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk. Let us continue to practice this gentle art of waking up together. As we become more present through mindfulness, we start to see our own patterns of holding on with startling clarity. We see how we cling to ideas, to expectations, to identities, to pleasure, and sometimes even to our own pain. This brings us to a pivotal practice on the path to peace, the wisdom of letting go. In Buddhism, this is often associated with the concept of nekkhamma, which can be translated as renunciation, or more helpfully as non-attachment. This doesn't mean we must adopt a cold, joyless asceticism, giving up all our possessions and relationships. It points to a much deeper, more subtle, and profoundly liberating internal shift. It is the wise and compassionate release of our mental and emotional grip on things, allowing life to flow without our constant interference, management, and control. It is the discovery that true freedom is found not in getting more, but in needing less. There is a powerful ancient parable that illustrates this principle perfectly. A man was traveling through a dangerous wilderness and came to the bank of a wide, treacherous river, teeming with unseen currents and dangers. There was no bridge and no boat. He knew that to stay where he was would be dangerous, as wild animals roamed the land. So using his ingenuity and effort, he gathered logs, sturdy branches, and tough vines. With great labor, he built a simple but effective raft. Pushing the raft into the water and paddling with a piece of wood, he was able to navigate the perilous currents and arrive safely on the other shore. When he arrived, he was immensely relieved and overflowing with gratitude for his raft. It had saved his life. He stood on the far bank, a place of safety and peace, and looked back at the raft bobbing gently in the shallows. He thought to himself, "This raft was so incredibly useful to me. It is a wonderful raft. I put so much work into it. It would be a waste to leave it behind. I might need it again later." And so, he hoisted the heavy, waterlogged, cumbersome raft onto his back and continued his journey inland. The other shore was a beautiful land of open meadows and rolling hills, but the man could barely enjoy it. He struggled and sweated under the immense weight of the raft. He couldn't walk freely through the beautiful fields of wildflowers. The raft got tangled in the trees of the forest, and he couldn't climb the hills to see the magnificent views. The very thing that had once been his instrument of liberation had become a terrible burden, a self-imposed prison. The Buddha used this story to ask his disciples, what would a wise person do? A wise person, he explained, would understand the raft's purpose. They would feel gratitude, acknowledge its immense value, and then they would leave it at the river bank and continue their journey, light, unburdened, and free. The raft, the Buddha explained, is like the teachings, the practices, and even our most cherished insights. They are skillful means designed to get us from the shore of suffering to the shore of liberation. But they are not meant to be clung to as rigid dogmas or as new, shinier identities. Even the most profound teaching can become a burden if we cling to it. This story extends to everything in our lives. We build rafts of all kinds: our accomplishments, our career, our relationships, our beliefs, our spiritual practices. These rafts can be very useful for a time, but if we cling to them, if we make them into a fixed part of our identity, they cease to be tools for liberation and instead become heavy burdens that prevent us from moving forward. The wisdom of letting go is the natural fruition of seeing impermanence and not self. If everything is changing, what is there to hold on to? If there is no solid, separate self, who is it that is doing the holding? Attachment is the attempt to make a solid and permanent home in a world that is fundamentally fluid and ever-changing. It is a recipe for constant struggle and disappointment. We become attached to specific outcomes, believing our happiness depends entirely on things going a certain way. This attachment to outcomes makes us rigid and fearful. We become attached to people, loving them not with open hands, but with a clenched fist of possession, control, and expectation, which ultimately suffocates the love it seeks to protect. We become attached to our opinions and beliefs, turning them into fortresses, and creating conflict with anyone who sees the world differently. We even, paradoxically, become attached to our own suffering. Our pain can become so familiar that it forms the core of our identity. We tell the story of our victimhood or our trauma over and over again, and the idea of letting go of that story can feel terrifying, as if we would not know who we are without it. Letting go is the practice of consciously, gently, and repeatedly loosening this clenched fist of the mind. It is not an act of cold indifference or spiritual bypassing, pretending you don't care to avoid feeling pain. On the contrary, letting go comes from a place of deep love and profound trust. You can love someone more fully and freely when you are not attached to them being a certain way to make you happy. You can engage with your work more creatively and joyfully when you are not desperately attached to a specific outcome. You can hold your own beliefs more lightly, which allows you to listen to others with a genuinely open heart. Non-attachment is not about not caring. It is about caring so much that you are willing to release your own ego's agenda and allow life and other people to be as they are. It is a profound trust in the unfolding of the universe. This is especially important in our spiritual lives. Sometimes we can become attached to a particular meditation technique, a teacher, or a certain kind of blissful experience. We might have a wonderful meditation one day and then spend weeks trying to replicate it. creating nothing but frustration and tension. The raft parable reminds us to hold our practices lightly. They are tools. Use them skillfully, but don't turn them into another thing to possess. The goal is not to become a good meditator. The goal is to be free. How do we practice this subtle and profound art of letting go in our daily lives? It begins with noticing the feeling of clinging. Attachment has a distinct physical and mental signature. It feels like a tightening, a tension, a clenching, a sense of holding your breath, of holding on for dear life. When you notice this feeling arising in response to a situation, you can begin the practice. One powerful technique is a releasing visualization. When you feel yourself clinging to a worry, a resentment, or an expectation, close your eyes for a moment, if you can. Imagine placing that thought or feeling into the palm of your hand. Look at it with kindness. Acknowledge its presence without judgment. Then, in your mind's eye, visualize yourself gently opening your hand and letting the wind carry it away. Or, you can imagine placing it on a leaf in a stream and watching it float peacefully out of sight. Repeat this as many times as you need. This is a way of training the mind in the physical sensation and the emotional intention of release. Journaling can also be a powerful tool for working with deeper attachments. You can make a list of things you notice you are attached to. They might be big things, like a career goal or a particular relationship dynamic, or small things, like the need for your house to be perfectly tidy. Then, for each item, you can write about the fear that lies beneath the attachment. What are you afraid will happen if you let go of this? Seeing the underlying fear clearly often diminishes its power. Then, you can write about what freedom might feel like on the other side of that attachment. This process brings conscious, compassionate awareness to our unconscious patterns of holding on. Perhaps the most accessible and continuous practice is simply to work with your breath. The breath is a perfect, living model of letting go. Every moment, you take in a breath, and then you must let it go to make space for the next one. You cannot hold on to an exhalation. When you are feeling tight, stressed, and attached, bring your full focus to your out-breath. With each exhalation, consciously practice letting go. You can even say the word release or let go silently to yourself as you breathe out. Let each out-breath be a small letting go of control, a small surrender to the present moment, a small act of trust in life. This gentle, repeated practice of release, woven into the moments of your day, is how you learn to unburden yourself from the heavy raft and walk freely, lightly, and peacefully on the other shore. The wisdom of letting go is the natural fruition of seeing impermanence and not self. If everything is changing, what is there to hold on to? If there is no solid, separate self, who is it that is doing the holding? Attachment is the attempt to make a solid and permanent home in a world that is fluid and ever-changing. It is a recipe for constant struggle and disappointment. Letting go is the practice of consciously, gently, and repeatedly loosening this clenched fist of the mind. It is a profound trust in the unfolding of the universe. It is how you learn to unburden yourself from the heavy raft and walk freely, lightly, and peacefully on the other shore. Let us pause here one last time before we bring our journey to a close. Take a slow, deep breath in, feeling the stillness of this moment. And as you breathe out, let go of any effort. Simply rest. If this path has been a refuge for you, I invite you to subscribe to Sleepy Monk, ensuring this sanctuary is always here for you when you need to return to the quiet. Now, as we near the end of our journey together, we venture into a teaching that is often considered the deepest and most profound in the Buddhist tradition. It is the wisdom of emptiness, or shunyata. The word emptiness can sound frightening or nihilistic, as if it means that nothing matters or nothing exists. But this is a complete misunderstanding. In Buddhism, emptiness does not mean non-existence. It means empty of a separate, independent, or intrinsic self. It is the ultimate expression of the interconnectedness we have already explored. It is the radical truth that everything is what it is only because of everything else. This insight is the final solvent that dissolves our most stubborn attachments and fears, revealing a reality that is vibrant, miraculous, and fundamentally free. There is a story of a young monk, Anatta, who was deeply troubled by the teaching of emptiness. He would sit and listen to the discourses, and his mind would rebel. "How can my hand be empty?" he would think, holding it up. "I can see it. I can feel it. It is solid. It is here." He saw the world as a collection of separate, solid things, and the teaching of emptiness felt like a denial of his own experience. His teacher, a wise old nun named Prajna, saw his struggle. One day, she handed him a simple clay cup. "Tell me about this cup," she said. Anatta described it. "It is made of clay. It is hard. It has a handle. It holds water." Prajna smiled. "But where is the cupness?" she asked. "Let us look for it. Is the clay the cup? No, the clay was once just earth. Is the water in the cup the cup? No, that is separate. Is the shape the cup? The shape was given by the potter's hands and the potter's mind." She then guided him in a deep contemplation. "This cup," she said, "is made entirely of non-cup elements. To be here, it needs the clay. The clay needed the earth and the water. The water needed the clouds and the rain. The potter needed food to have the strength to work, and that food came from the sun and the soil. This cup is full of the entire universe. It is empty of being just a cup, separate from everything else. Its existence is a miracle of interdependence." Anatta looked at the cup with new eyes. He had seen an object. She was showing him a process, a relationship. Prajna then pointed to a great wave cresting on the nearby sea. "Look at that wave," she said. "It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a shape, a height, a power. It is clearly a wave. But can you find anything in that wave that is not the ocean? The wave is empty of a separate self. It is nothing more and nothing less than the ocean, waving. It arises from the ocean, and it will dissolve back into the ocean. Because it is empty of a separate self, it is full of all the water in the sea." In that instant, Anatta understood. He looked down at his own hand again. He saw not a solid, separate object, but a temporary manifestation of the universe. He saw his parents and his ancestors in his hand. He saw the sun, the air, the water, and all the food he had ever eaten. His hand was empty of being just his hand. And because of that, it was full of all of life. The fear he felt around the word emptiness dissolved into a feeling of profound connection and awe. The wisdom of emptiness, or shunyata, is the ultimate antidote to our delusion of separateness. We walk through the world perceiving a solid me and a collection of solid others and things. This perception is the root of clinging, as we try to possess these things, and the root of aversion, as we try to push them away. Emptiness reveals that these solid lines we draw are illusions created by the mind. In reality, everything co-arises in a seamless, unified field. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form, states the Heart Sutra, one of the most famous Buddhist texts. This means that the form of the wave is inextricably linked to its emptiness of being separate from the ocean. The form of the cup is dependent on its emptiness of a solitary existence. They are not two different things. They are two aspects of the same reality. When we understand this, our relationship with life changes dramatically. We stop clinging so tightly to things because we see they have no independent essence to grasp. A painful emotion arises. Instead of seeing it as a solid, terrible thing that is happening to me, we can see it as a temporary wave of energy arising from countless causes and conditions, empty of any solid core. Seeing its emptiness allows us to be with it without being overwhelmed by it. A moment of great joy arises. Instead of desperately trying to hold on to it, we can savor its beauty, knowing that it too is a transient wave, a gift of the interdependent universe. We can love it without needing to possess it. This is not a dry, intellectual understanding. It is a felt sense of liberation. When we see the emptiness of all phenomena, we become fearless. What is there to be afraid of losing when nothing was ever a separate, possessible thing in the first place? What fixed self is there to be threatened? Seeing emptiness allows us to dance with life, to engage with it fully, with an open, loving, and spacious heart. We are no longer a frightened ego trying to defend its tiny territory. We become the open space in which the whole dance of life unfolds. To touch this wisdom, we practice by deconstructing our experience. This is not as complicated as it sounds. It is a subtle shift in perception. Take a moment to look at any object in the room with you right now: a lamp, a book, a table. Look at it and then begin to mentally break it down into its non-object parts. If it's a wooden table, see the tree, see the forest, see the sunlight that fed the tree, the rain that watered it, the soil that nourished it. See the logger who cut the tree, the carpenter who shaped the wood, the tools they used, and the people who made the tools. Continue this process until you see that the solid table is actually a meeting point for the entire cosmos. It is empty of being an independent table. This practice can be applied to anything. Contemplate your own body. See that it is made of non-body elements. The food you ate, the water you drank, the air you breathe, the genetic information from your parents and ancestors. See that your body is not yours, but a temporary loan from the universe. This is not to diminish its preciousness, but to enhance it. You can also apply this to your emotions. When a strong feeling like anger arises, instead of identifying with it, investigate it. Where is it in your body? Does it have a solid center? Or is it a collection of changing sensations? Heat in the chest, tension in the jaw, a rush of energy. Notice the thoughts that are feeding it. See that the anger is not a single, solid thing. It is a process, a confluence of thoughts and sensations, arising due to causes and conditions. When you see it this way, you deconstruct its power. You see its emptiness, and it can no longer command you. The ultimate practice of seeing emptiness is simply to rest in open awareness, without labeling or conceptualizing. When you let go of all the stories and judgments, what remains is a direct, vibrant, and luminous reality. In this state, you don't think about emptiness. You are the spacious, open awareness in which the interdependent nature of reality reveals itself, moment by moment. This understanding of reality, where everything is interconnected and every action has a consequence, leads us to the crucial teaching of karma. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts from the East. Karma is not a system of cosmic reward and punishment meted out by an external judge. It is simply the natural law of cause and effect. It is the truth that our actions, motivated by our intentions, create our world. The word karma literally means action, but the Buddha clarified that the most important element is satana, or intention. It is the will, the volition, the intention behind the action that plants the seed. This is an incredibly empowering teaching. It means that we are not the helpless victims of fate. In every moment, we have the power to shape our future by cultivating skillful intentions in the present. Consider the story of two farmers, brothers who lived side by side. Both were good men who worked hard. One year, a terrible storm swept through the valley and completely flattened their rice paddies just before the harvest. Their entire year's work was destroyed. It was the exact same external event for both of them. The first brother, overwhelmed by the loss, fell into despair. His mind was filled with thoughts of anger and blame. "This is a curse," he shouted at the sky. "Why does this always happen to me? The world is unjust." He grew bitter and resentful. He snapped at his wife and children and refused help from his neighbors, whom he now viewed with suspicion and envy. His intention was rooted in aversion and self-pity. He was planting seeds of isolation, anger, and future suffering for himself and his family. The second brother, looking out at the same devastation, also felt a deep wave of sadness. He allowed himself to feel the loss. But after the initial grief, his intention shifted. He thought, "This has happened. I cannot change the past. What can I do now?" His intention was rooted in acceptance and wisdom. He gathered his family and said, "We have lost our crop, but we still have each other. We have our strength." He went to his neighbors, not with envy, but with an open heart. "We have all suffered from this storm," he said. "Let us work together to clear the fields and prepare for the next planting. Together, we are stronger." His intention was rooted in compassion and connection. He was planting seeds of community, resilience, and future happiness. The external event was identical, but the karma, the intentional action and its resulting experience, was completely different. One brother created a personal hell of bitterness, while the other created a community of support. The teaching of karma is not fatalistic. It is the ultimate expression of free will. It places the responsibility for the quality of our lives squarely in our own hands, or more accurately, in our own hearts and minds. The Buddha taught that intentions rooted in the three poisons of greed, hatred, and delusion lead to actions that cause suffering for ourselves and others. When we act from a place of grasping and wanting more, we create dissatisfaction. When we act from a place of anger and ill will, we create conflict and pain. When we act from a place of confusion and not seeing things clearly, we make unskillful choices that lead to regret. Conversely, intentions rooted in their opposites, generosity, loving-kindness, and wisdom, lead to actions that create happiness and peace. When we act from a place of generosity, we create connection and joy. When we act from a place of loving-kindness, we create harmony and safety. When we act from a place of wisdom and clarity, we make skillful choices that lead to freedom. This is not a metaphysical belief system. You can observe this law in action in your own life every single day. Notice how you feel after lashing out at someone in anger versus how you feel after offering a genuine word of kindness. The results are immediate and tangible. The most beautiful aspect of this teaching is that it is never too late. Your past karma has created your present moment, but your present karma, your intention right now, is creating your future. You are not defined or condemned by your past actions. In this very moment, you have the power to plant a new seed. You can choose to cultivate a kind thought. You can choose to perform a small act of generosity. You can choose to respond to a difficult situation with patience instead of reactivity. Each of these choices is a powerful karmic act that changes the trajectory of your life. It empowers us to stop being passive victims of our circumstances and to become the conscious, loving architects of our own experience. To work skillfully with karma, we must bring mindfulness to our intentions. A powerful practice is to begin each day with intention setting. Before you get out of bed, or as you have your first cup of tea, take a moment to set a simple, wholesome intention for the day. It could be, today I will practice patience, or today I will listen with an open heart, or today I will be kind to myself. Setting a conscious intention at the start of the day acts like a rudder for your mind, helping to guide your actions in a skillful direction. Throughout the day, practice mindful pauses. Before you speak, before you send that email, before you react to a trigger, take one conscious breath. In that pause, you can check in with your intention. Is what I am about to say or do coming from a place of kindness and clarity, or from a place of fear, anger, or ego? This small gap can be the difference between creating good karma and creating painful karma. At the end of the day, you can practice a gentle karma review. This is not about judging yourself or feeling guilty. It is a compassionate self-reflection. Ask yourself, what were the intentions behind my major actions today? When was I able to act from a place of kindness? When did I get caught in reactivity? The purpose is simply to learn, to understand your own patterns more deeply so that you can make wiser choices tomorrow. Finally, practice the karma of generosity, or dana. This doesn't have to be about money. You can be generous with your time, with your listening, with a smile, with a word of encouragement. Every act of giving, no matter how small, when done with a pure intention of wishing another well, is a powerful way to generate positive karma. It breaks the spell of the self-centered mind and connects us to the joy of our shared humanity. By becoming mindful of our intentions, we transform our life from a series of random happenings into a conscious, meaningful, and beautiful path of awakening. And where does this path lead? What is the final shore that the raft was built to reach? In Buddhism, the ultimate goal, the fruition of the entire path, is called nirvana. This is another word that is widely misunderstood. Nirvana is not a heaven-like paradise that we go to after we die. It is a state of being that is available right here in this very life. The word literally means to extinguish or to blow out. What is extinguished? The fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is the complete and utter cessation of suffering and its causes. It is the mind's final, unshakable liberation. It is the experience of profound and lasting peace that comes from seeing reality exactly as it is. Imagine you have been carrying a massive, heavy boulder on your back for your entire life. You have carried it for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to be without it. You assume that the aching in your shoulders and the strain in your legs is just the normal state of being. The weight dictates how you walk, where you can go, and how you see the world. Every movement is an effort. Then, one day, through great practice and insight, you finally understand that you can put the boulder down. You lean over, and with a great sigh of release, you let it roll off your back and settle onto the earth. In that moment, what do you feel? An indescribable lightness, a freedom you never knew was possible, a profound sense of ease and relief. The air feels different. The light looks brighter. You can stand up straight for the first time. You can run, you can dance. That feeling of relief, of unburdening, of final release, that is a metaphor for nirvana. It is not an escape from life. It is the beginning of truly living, free from the crushing weight of our mental burdens. Nirvana is the natural result of seeing the truths we have been exploring. When you truly and deeply realize the truth of impermanence, your clinging to fleeting pleasures is extinguished. When you truly and deeply realize the truth of not self, the ego's desperate projects of self-preservation and self-aggrandizement are extinguished. When you truly and deeply realize the truth of dukkha and its cause, your relentless craving is extinguished. The extinguishing of these fires is nirvana. It is not a state of blissful numbness or a blank void. It is, according to the texts, a state of supreme happiness, but it is a happiness that is not dependent on conditions. It is the steady, radiant peace of a mind that is no longer at war with itself or with reality. A person who has realized nirvana still lives in the world. They still experience pleasant and unpleasant sensations. They may feel the heat of the sun or the pain of a stubbed toe, but these experiences no longer create mental suffering. The second arrow of reactivity, the judgment, the story, the resistance, is gone. They meet all of life's experiences with a vast, open, and compassionate equanimity. They are like a deep ocean whose surface may have waves, but whose depths remain profoundly, utterly still. This state is characterized by boundless compassion, because when one's own suffering has ceased, the heart naturally turns toward the suffering of all other beings who are still caught in the fire. You cannot achieve nirvana through willpower, just as you cannot force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. It is the natural unfolding that occurs when you diligently and patiently cultivate the path. The practice for realizing nirvana is the path itself. The application is to trust the process. The way to the other shore is to continue using the raft skillfully. Therefore, the final practice is simply this: to continue. To continue to practice mindfulness, bringing your attention back to the present moment again and again. To continue to practice compassion, watering the seeds of kindness for yourself and others. To continue to investigate the nature of your experience, seeing the truth of impermanence and not self. To continue to practice letting go, loosening your grip on all the things that cause you stress. Each mindful breath, each kind thought, each moment of seeing clearly is a step on the path. There is no magic formula. The path is the goal. Trust that by simply tending to your own heart and mind, with gentle, persistent care, you are creating the causes and conditions for your own liberation. The final practice is to rest in the possibility of this freedom. To know that a state of peace beyond all understanding is not just a myth, but the inherent potential of your own mind. Let this knowledge be a source of inspiration and courage on your journey. You are not just trying to feel a little better. You're on a path that leads to the complete and total end of suffering. Now, let us conclude our journey with some timeless Zen stories. Yamaoka Teshu was a young and intellectually gifted student of Zen, who had spent considerable time studying Buddhist philosophy and developing what he believed was a sophisticated understanding of the deepest teachings. He was particularly drawn to the profound concepts of emptiness and non-duality that form the foundation of advanced Buddhist thought, and he felt confident that his grasp of these ideas demonstrated significant spiritual achievement. Having heard of the renowned Master Dokuan's reputation for wisdom and insight, Yamaoka decided to visit him to demonstrate his understanding and perhaps receive acknowledgement of his philosophical sophistication. He approached this meeting with the confidence of someone who had mastered complex intellectual material and expected to engage in elevated spiritual discourse. When Yamaoka was granted an audience with Master Dokuan, he found the master sitting quietly in his simple room, smoking his bamboo pipe with calm composure. The atmosphere was peaceful and unpretentious, but Yamaoka was eager to share his insights and engage in profound philosophical discussion. Master, Yamaoka began with the authority of someone well-versed in Buddhist doctrine. I have come to share with you my understanding of the fundamental nature of reality as taught by the Buddha. he proceeded to articulate what he considered a masterful summary of advanced Buddhist philosophy. The mind, Buddha, and sentient beings, after all, do not exist in any ultimate sense. Everything we perceive and experience is, when examined closely, empty of inherent existence. The true nature of all phenomena is emptiness itself. There is no solid, independent reality to be found anywhere. Yamaoka continued with growing confidence in his exposition. There is no realization to be achieved because there is no one to achieve it, and nothing to be realized. There is no delusion to be overcome, because delusion itself is empty. There is no sage and no ordinary person, because these distinctions are merely conceptual fabrications with no ultimate reality. Furthermore, he concluded with evident satisfaction in his philosophical precision. There is no one who gives teachings and nothing to be received, no teacher and no student, because all such dualities are illusions created by conceptual thinking that fails to recognize the fundamental emptiness of existence. Throughout this lengthy philosophical presentation, Master Dokuan continued smoking his pipe in silence, showing no particular reaction to Yamaoka's elaborate exposition of Buddhist metaphysics. His face remained calm and neutral, neither impressed nor dismissive of the young man's intellectual display. When Yamaoka finished his discourse and waited expectantly for some acknowledgement of his understanding, Master Dokuan made no verbal response. Instead, he continued smoking quietly for several more moments, as if considering what he had heard. Then, without any warning or explanation, Master Dokuan picked up his bamboo pipe and struck Yamaoka hard on the head with it. The blow was unexpected and quite painful. Yamaoka immediately jumped up from his seated position, his face flushed with anger and indignation. His philosophical composure vanished instantly, replaced by very human emotions of pain, surprise, and rage. "Why did you hit me?" he demanded, his voice filled with outrage. "What kind of teaching method is this? How dare you strike a visitor who came here respectfully to discuss the Dharma?" Master Dokuan looked at the angry young man with a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "If nothing exists," he said calmly, "where did this anger come from?" Yamaoka stood there speechless. His entire philosophical framework suddenly revealed as inadequate to address his immediate experience. All his sophisticated understanding of emptiness and non-existence had dissolved the moment he encountered actual pain and genuine emotional reaction. His intellectual grasp of Buddhist concepts proved completely useless when faced with the direct reality of his own mind's responses. The Buddha taught, "Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. But after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it." This ancient wisdom illuminates the crucial difference between intellectual acceptance of spiritual teachings and authentic realization that transforms how we actually live. What emerges from this story is a teaching about the vast gap that can exist between conceptual understanding and embodied wisdom. Yamaoka could articulate sophisticated Buddhist philosophy with impressive precision, but his understanding remained purely intellectual rather than experiential. When challenged by immediate reality, his concepts offered no real guidance or stability. This tale unveils a pattern that appears frequently in spiritual development. the accumulation of spiritual knowledge that remains separate from actual transformation. We can study teachings about non-attachment while remaining deeply attached to our spiritual identity. We can understand theories about the illusory nature of the ego while defending our self-image with great intensity. We can master the vocabulary of enlightenment while remaining caught in the same emotional patterns we've always experienced. Master Dokwan's teaching method was both skillful and direct. Rather than engaging in abstract philosophical debate, he created an immediate situation that would reveal the difference between Yamaoka's concepts and his actual level of realization. The pipe striking his head wasn't an act of aggression, but a compassionate teaching device designed to show the young man where his understanding remained merely theoretical. Why do we sometimes mistake intellectual comprehension for genuine spiritual attainment? The thinking mind is seductive in its ability to create elaborate frameworks that give us a sense of understanding and progress. When we can explain complex spiritual concepts fluently, we naturally feel that we've achieved something significant. But as Yamaoka discovered, conceptual knowledge often proves inadequate when we encounter actual challenges to our equanimity. The anger that arose when Yamaoka was struck revealed the gap between his philosophical stance and his emotional reality. If he had truly realized the emptiness of existence he described so eloquently, physical pain and unexpected treatment wouldn't have triggered such an immediate and intense reaction. His anger demonstrated that despite his sophisticated rhetoric, his sense of self remained very much intact and reactive. Consider how this teaching might apply to your own spiritual or personal development. Are there areas where your intellectual understanding exceeds your actual capacity to embody what you know? Perhaps you understand the principles of mindfulness while still becoming lost in anxious thoughts during stressful situations. Maybe you believe in the importance of compassion while finding yourself harshly critical of people whose behavior annoys you. This pattern appears beyond formal spiritual contexts in any domain where knowledge and practice diverge. We might understand the psychology of healthy relationships while still falling into dysfunctional communication patterns during conflict. We could know a great deal about nutrition and exercise while maintaining habits that don't support our well-being. The pipe in this story represents any experience that tests whether our understanding has moved beyond the conceptual level into genuine embodiment. These tests often arrive unexpectedly: a criticism that triggers defensiveness, a setback that reveals hidden attachments, or a conflict that exposes the gap between our spiritual ideals and our actual responses. Zen Buddhism emphasizes direct experience over intellectual knowledge, precisely because concepts alone cannot transform consciousness. We can study meditation techniques extensively, but sitting quietly with a restless mind for 20 minutes often teaches us more about the nature of awareness than reading countless books about mindfulness theory. Master Dokwan's question, "Where did this anger come from?" pointed directly to the contradiction between Yamaoka's philosophical position and his immediate experience. If nothing truly exists, including the self that could be offended, then anger should have no basis for arising. The fact that anger did arise so quickly and intensely revealed that Yamaoka's realization of emptiness remained conceptual rather than experiential. The Buddha said, "However many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do you if you do not act upon them?" Yamaoka had absorbed many holy words about emptiness and non-existence, But his reaction to the pipe demonstrated that these words hadn't yet transformed his actual relationship to experience. What's remarkable about this teaching encounter is how quickly it revealed the truth of Yamaoka's situation. Rather than allowing him to continue building elaborate intellectual frameworks that might take years to deconstruct, Master Dokuwan's direct intervention immediately exposed the gap between knowledge and realization. Tonight, as you reflect on your own spiritual and personal development, can you identify areas where your intellectual understanding might exceed your actual capacity to embody what you know? When tomorrow brings unexpected challenges, the metaphorical pipes that test our equanimity, will you respond from genuine realization or react from conditioned patterns? As the Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Perhaps the deepest thinking is learning to think less and embody more, discovering that true wisdom reveals itself not in what we can explain about emptiness, but in how empty we can remain when pipes strike our heads. Our next story speaks to the moment when understanding transcends effort. This is no water, no moon. The nun Chiono had devoted many years to intensive Zen study and practice. She spent countless hours in meditation, wrestling with profound koans and contemplating the deepest teachings of the Buddha. Her dedication was unwavering. She rose before dawn each day, sat in perfect posture through pain and discomfort, and approached her spiritual practice with the kind of fierce determination that impressed even her teachers. Despite her sincere efforts and obvious commitment, enlightenment continued to elude her. She could understand the concepts intellectually, speak eloquently about emptiness and non-duality, and even guide other students through basic meditation techniques. But the final breakthrough, the direct realization that would transform her understanding completely, remained just beyond her grasp. Years passed this way. Chiono began to feel a growing frustration with her practice. She watched as other students seemed to achieve insights that remained mysterious to her. She questioned her methods, intensified her efforts, and sometimes wondered if she lacked some essential capacity for awakening that others possessed naturally. One night, after a particularly long day of meditation and study, Chiono was walking slowly back to her small quarters. She carried an old wooden water pail that she had filled at the well earlier that evening. The pail was ancient, held together by strips of bamboo that had grown worn and weak with age. It had served faithfully for many years, but she could feel it becoming increasingly fragile in her hands. As she walked through the moonlit courtyard, she became mesmerized by the sight before her. The full moon hung perfectly in the dark sky above, its bright light illuminating the temple grounds with a soft, ethereal glow. But what captured her attention was the reflection of that moon in the water she carried. There, contained within her humble pail, was a perfect, unbroken circle of light. The moon itself, complete and radiant, held in water. She walked carefully, almost reverently, watching this reflected moon dance gently with each step she took. The image was so clear, so perfect, that it seemed as real as the moon in the sky above. For a moment, she felt she was carrying something sacred, transporting this luminous presence from the well to her room. Suddenly, without warning, the aged bamboo strips that held the pail together finally gave way. The bottom of the bucket fell out completely, and all the water rushed to the ground in a single, swift motion. In an instant, the reflection of the moon vanished completely. With no water, there was no moon. At that precise moment, watching the reflected moon disappear as the water hit the earth, Chiono experienced complete liberation. All her years of seeking, striving, and effort suddenly revealed themselves as unnecessary. The very thing she had been chasing, enlightenment, awakening, understanding, had never been separate from her to begin with. Like the moon's reflection, it had appeared to exist independently, but it was simply the natural expression of what was already present. Buddha spoke of this when he said, "Look within, you are the Buddha." The deeper teaching here shows us that spiritual realization often comes not through accumulation, but through release, not through grasping, but through letting go. This ancient tale illuminates a fundamental paradox in all spiritual seeking. We begin the path believing that enlightenment is something we must acquire, achieve, or attain through effort and discipline. We imagine it as a distant goal, a state of consciousness we don't currently possess, but might earn through sufficient practice and dedication. Chiono's years of sincere effort weren't wasted. They were necessary preparation, like tenderizing the soil before planting seeds. But her breakthrough came precisely when she stopped trying to capture and hold on to spiritual realization, and instead witnessed its natural arising and dissolving. Why do we find it so difficult to recognize what is already present? The seeking mind creates the very separation it hopes to overcome. When we believe that awakening exists out there or in the future, we overlook the awareness that is reading these words right now, the consciousness that experiences thoughts and emotions without being limited by them. Consider how this pattern plays out in your own spiritual life or personal development. Do you sometimes feel like you're chasing insights, trying to grasp peace, or working to achieve a state of mind that seems just beyond reach? The very effort to capture these experiences can prevent us from recognizing that the awareness capable of seeking is already what we're seeking. This doesn't mean abandoning all spiritual practice or personal growth efforts. Chiono's years of discipline created the conditions for her realization, but it does point toward a different relationship with practice, engaging wholeheartedly while holding the results lightly, like carrying water that might spill at any moment. Zen master Bankei expressed this understanding when he said, "The unborn is the Buddha mind itself." When you have realized this fact, the Buddha mind with which you were born from your mother has done the Buddha's work from the very beginning. What we're seeking in meditation, therapy, or personal growth is the recognition of what was never absent. The water and moon in the story represent the apparent duality between seeker and sought, between the ordinary mind and the awakened mind. As long as we believe these are separate, that the moon exists independently in the water, we try to protect and preserve our spiritual experiences. But when the container breaks, we discover that the separation was illusory. This teaching extends beyond formal spiritual practice into every area of life where we chase happiness, success, or fulfillment, as if these were objects to be acquired rather than expressions of our true nature. The perfect relationship, the ideal job, the peaceful state of mind. These are often reflections we try to capture and hold, not recognizing that their essence is already present in our capacity to appreciate and seek them. In Zen practice, we learn to trust the process of natural unfolding, rather than forcing insights or demanding particular experiences. Sometimes the most profound understanding comes when we stop trying so hard to understand, when we let the bottom fall out of our containers and allow our carefully constructed spiritual images to dissolve. The Buddha taught, "The one who has conquered himself is a far greater hero than he who has defeated 1,000 times 1,000 men." The conquest Chiono achieved was not victory over ignorance, but recognition that the battle itself was based on a misunderstanding. Tonight, as you reflect on your own seeking and striving, can you imagine what it might feel like to let the bottom fall out of your spiritual container? What would happen if you stopped trying to capture and hold on to your insights, and instead trusted the natural wisdom that already animates your seeking? As the Buddha reminded us, within you there is a stillness and a sanctuary to which you can retreat at any time and be yourself. Perhaps what we're looking for has been looking through our eyes all along. Let us now turn to a story about recognizing our true worth through the eyes of those who can truly see. This is the value of a diamond. A young student was walking along a riverbank one peaceful afternoon when something caught his eye among the smooth stones at the water's edge. Reaching down, he picked up what appeared to be an unusually beautiful stone, larger than his fist, with an interesting crystalline structure that caught the light in intriguing ways. Though he didn't know exactly what it was, something about the stone's appearance suggested it might be more than just an ordinary river rock. Curious about his find, the student took the stone to his Zen master. "Master," he said, bowing respectfully, "I found this stone by the river. I wonder if it have any value at all, or if it's just another piece of ordinary rock." The master examined the stone briefly, turning it over in his withered hands. Without giving away what he might have suspected about its true nature, he looked at his student thoughtfully. "Go to the marketplace," he instructed, "and find out what people think this stone is worth. But remember this carefully. No matter what anyone offers you, do not sell it. Simply learn what they would pay and return to me with that information." Following his teacher's instructions, the student went first to the bustling marketplace in the center of town. He approached a merchant who was selling oranges from a colorful cart, fresh fruit piled high in attractive displays. "Excuse me," the student said politely, showing the man his stone. "Could you tell me what you think this might be worth?" The orange merchant glanced at the stone casually, seeing only an interesting but ultimately common rock. "Well," he said, after a moment's consideration, "it's certainly larger and prettier than most stones. I'd be willing to give you 10 oranges for it. That seems like a fair trade." The student thanked him respectfully and continued through the marketplace. Next, he approached a woman selling vegetables, her stall filled with fresh produce from the local farms. "What do you think this stone might be worth?" he asked, holding it out for her inspection. The vegetable seller looked more carefully than the orange merchant had, noting the stone's unusual clarity and weight. "This is quite an attractive specimen," she said thoughtfully. "I'd offer you a whole sack of my finest potatoes for it. That would feed you for weeks." Again, the student declined politely and moved on. He then sought out a goldsmith, a man whose expertise with precious materials was well known throughout the region. Surely someone who worked with valuable metals and gems would have a better understanding of what he had found. The goldsmith took the stone and examined it much more carefully than the previous merchants. He held it up to the light, studied its internal structure, and weighed it in his experienced hands. His eyes grew wide with recognition and excitement. "My boy," he said with obvious enthusiasm, "this is no ordinary stone. This is a very rare and valuable gem. I will give you 500 gold coins for it. Enough money to live comfortably for many years." The student was amazed by this dramatic increase in the stone's perceived value. But he remembered his master's instructions and respectfully declined the goldsmith's generous offer. Finally, he sought out the most respected jeweler in the entire city, an elderly man renowned for his expertise with the most precious stones and his service to wealthy nobles and royalty. This jeweler had handled treasures that belonged to kings and queens, and his knowledge was considered unparalleled. The old jeweler took the stone with reverent care, holding it up to examine it in the bright light streaming through his shop window. He turned it slowly, studying every facet and internal reflection. His expression gradually transformed from professional interest to profound awe and wonder. After several minutes of careful examination, he gently placed the stone on the soft velvet cloth and looked at the student with deep respect. "Young man," he said in a voice filled with reverence, "where did you acquire this extraordinary treasure? This is not merely a stone. It is one of the most magnificent diamonds I have ever encountered in my entire career. It is absolutely priceless. I could not afford to purchase it, even if I sold everything I own, my entire shop, my house, all my possessions combined, would not be sufficient to pay for what this is truly worth." The student returned to his master with wonder and confusion, recounting each encounter and the dramatically different valuations he had received. The Zen master listened to each part of the story with a knowing smile. "You see," the master said gently when the student had finished, "the orange merchant and the vegetable seller saw only an interesting rock, because that was the limit of their perception. The goldsmith recognized its material value because he had the knowledge to identify precious stones. But only the master jeweler could see its true, immeasurable worth because he possessed the deepest understanding and the most refined perception." The master paused, looking directly into his student's eyes. "Your life is like that diamond. You can choose to see yourself as having little value, like the first merchants did. You can recognize some of your worth, like the goldsmith did. Or you can understand that you are absolutely priceless, as the master jeweler recognized. The choice of how to value yourself depends entirely on the quality of perception you bring to looking at your own life." The Buddha once said, "If we could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would change." This teaching relates profoundly to how we perceive not only the world around us but ourselves within it. What emerges from this story is a powerful truth about the relationship between perception and value, between the clarity of our vision and our ability to recognize what is precious. The diamond's inherent worth never changed. What changed was the level of understanding and appreciation each person brought to examining it. This ancient wisdom illuminates how we often undervalue ourselves because we're looking through the eyes of those who cannot see clearly, rather than those who can recognize true worth. We might spend our lives seeking validation from people who, like the orange merchant, can only see surface appearances and obvious utility. Or we might feel satisfied when someone recognizes our material accomplishments, like the goldsmith did, without realizing that our deepest value transcends any external achievement. Why do we find it so difficult to recognize our own priceless nature? We're often conditioned to measure our worth through external metrics, our productivity, our achievements, our social status, or our ability to meet others' expectations. These measurements, while not entirely meaningless, are like seeing a diamond and thinking only about how many oranges it might buy. Consider how this teaching applies to your relationship with yourself. Do you sometimes evaluate your worth based on your job performance, your appearance, your relationship status, or your financial situation? These aspects of life matter in practical terms, but they're like the goldsmith's valuation, real but limited, compared to your inherent, unmeasurable value. The different levels of perception in the story also reveal how we might seek recognition from people who lack the capacity to see us clearly. When we feel hurt because someone doesn't appreciate our efforts, doesn't understand our perspective, or doesn't recognize our contributions, we might be expecting the orange merchant to see a diamond. This doesn't mean dismissing all feedback or becoming arrogant about our worth. Rather, it means developing the discernment to recognize who has the clarity of perception to truly see us. The master jeweler's recognition was valuable precisely because it came from deep knowledge and refined understanding. Zen teacher Dogen wrote, "To study the Buddha way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." As we develop greater understanding of our true nature through practice and self-reflection, we begin to see ourselves through increasingly clear perception, like moving from the orange merchant's eyes toward the master jeweler's vision. This teaching also applies to how we see others. When we look at people through limited perception, we might see only their obvious characteristics or social roles. But when we develop the master jeweler's quality of attention, we begin to recognize the priceless nature present in every person we encounter. Tonight, as you reflect on how you've been valuing yourself lately, can you imagine looking at your life through the master jeweler's eyes? What would shift if you truly recognized that your worth is not dependent on your achievements, your appearance, your productivity, or anyone else's opinion? As the Buddha taught, what we think, we become. When we see ourselves as priceless, we begin to live from that understanding, naturally expressing the diamond nature that was never actually hidden. Our journey through these teachings now comes to a gentle close. We have walked a long way together, from the simple acknowledgement of life's friction to the profound peace of letting go. We have seen that our suffering comes not from life itself, but from our resistance to its flow. We have discovered that beneath the passing clouds of our thoughts and emotions, the sky of our awareness is always clear and untouched. We have learned to tune the strings of our heart, finding the middle way of balance, and to water the garden of our mind with the unconditional warmth of loving kindness. We have seen that we are not isolated islands, but waves in a single, magnificent ocean of being. Now, let us bring these threads together in a final moment of practice. Find a comfortable position and gently close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and a long, slow breath out. Let your body feel heavy, supported, and at rest. Bring your awareness to the feeling of the air touching your nostrils. Just for this moment, let this be your anchor. If thoughts arise, see them as clouds drifting through the vast, open sky of your mind. You are the sky, not the clouds. Let them come and let them go. Now, feel into your heart space. Imagine a small, warm light in the center of your chest. With every in-breath, imagine this light growing a little brighter, a little warmer. With every out-breath, imagine this warmth radiating through your entire body. This is the light of your own innate goodness, your Buddha nature. It has always been here. Simply rest in this warmth, in this gentle, loving presence. You are safe. You are whole. You are at peace. There is nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. Just this, just here, just now. Thank you for walking this path with me. Rest well.